and say welcome to this second class meeting of the course on focusing psychotherapy and the implicit. I'm Ann Weiser Cornell. Jean is here too, Jean Gendlin. And I am so excited about what Jean is planning to say today that I don't feel the need to say very much. Just to say that later in the course, we'll be interested in your comments, and later in today's class, we'll be interested in your comments and questions, so you might be sensing into your own work with clients and your own interest in these topics, and when the time comes, we'll be very interested in what you'd like to ask about, what you'd like us to say more about, and so on. So, with that introduction, go ahead, Jean. Yeah.
Well, first I want to say that after I hung up last time, I was very content with what I had said, but I forgot to say that the questions, especially some of them, were about people who don't go inside and don't want to go inside and consistently don't go inside for a long time, like a year or something like that. And I should have said, yeah, that's what our whole 5 classes are going to be about. And I forgot to say that.
Yeah.
All I said, which I'll say again today, is that we keep getting another chance and another chance and another chance, because the way we reflect now is utterly different from the old style where you just said back what the person said, and the therapy was supposed to happen in the conversation. Now you know, and this class is partly for that purpose, the first part anyway, you know what kind of process in the person you want. You know the process. I said last time that I do everything, but always in the context of the contact. And I know the process. That gives me a lot of ease and relaxation, because even though I'm very taut and I'm very focused, I know this process. And I don't have to know the answers, and in fact, one cannot know the answers till they come. But I know the process. I know how to let that come. And that's more what I want to talk about today. The way we reflect now is not to say back, but first to sense that we understand. And if we don't, then we have to say, please say that another way, I don't get it. But if we understand, all it takes was going inside for a second, not a whole second, a little moment and saying, do I get this? Oh, yeah. And then I talk back from my getting it so that my expression is fresh. And I use the main words that the client uses. I don't substitute something else for charged words. But otherwise, I say it in my own way, and that way the person can hear that I got it. And then they correct it, and I accept that, and then they correct it again. And then when it's all going easily, there is this breath, this, oh, yeah, now you got it, that comes with this little silence. And if that happens, we're in good shape, and we just continue, and everything will be all right. This course is centered on when that does not come, when the person never feels, when that silence where the deeper thing comes, it doesn't happen.
That's what we're interested in. Now, Jean, let me see if I've got your point about the difference in reflecting now than in an older style. There's an extra step in there that seems where we, the listener, the therapist, counselor, focusing guide, or whatever, we're taking a moment, however long that moment is, to get it. And I think that's a bodily move on our part, right?
Usually we get it, but we didn't get conscious of getting it.
Right.
Yes, it's a bodily move. Oh, yeah.
I need to let that in. Maybe I'll just say, yeah. Or maybe I'll know that I don't get it, so I'll need to ask something. Or maybe I'll say what I got, but they'll correct me. But the extra step, the difference is that I take some whatever short of a time, but to to let myself get it in my body.
I speak from my bodily understanding.
Mm.
Or I speak from my felt sense of, oh, yeah, I know what you're saying. And then, of course, it turns out that I don't know what she's saying, and she corrects me, and then I say, oh, I see you mean that. But again, I'm saying, oh, yeah, that's right, she means that. Oh, it's like that. And then maybe I get corrected one more time. And then there's this moment where there should be this, oh, yeah, now there's a little silence, and the next thing comes.
There should be the, yeah, but we're interested in this course in the cases where there isn't.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Right.
And so the second thing I want to talk about, I call the spot. I know what process in the person I want, and that process is a turning on what the client is saying and having the spot that they're at. Now, to tell a person we're going to go inside is threatening and feels unpleasant. Oh, I got to go to this ugly place. But when I can reflect where they're already at and produce this little moment of, oh, yeah, that's where it's at, then the process will move. And I have to explain what a spot is and how I sense it. From a spot, it has its own direction. From a spot, I cannot know and don't have to know. The client cannot know and does not have to know how it moves. From a spot, it moves. So what we all want is we want the client to be at a spot and have that spot so it can move.
Is a spot something like an edge that you've talked about at other times?
It's an edge. When it really, really comes in, it's an edge. It's a felt sense. But really listening like this is moving it toward becoming a felt sense.
It might not even be a felt sense, but it's somehow the potential for one.
Yeah, it's a spot where there will be a felt sense if I'm right and it's really a spot.
Now, I'm very excited by something you just said, so I want to be sure I've understood it. You're talking about the very same person who, if they are told, okay, now let's go inside, or how would you like to bring awareness inside now, that person would go something like, oh no, that's scary, or I don't know how, or just start talking about.
You go to that bad place that I sink in.
Yeah, they don't know how. That same person would be able to easily maybe turn toward their inner place if caught at the right moment, if invited just for a little bit of a turn at that moment that you're calling a spot. So
that's right.
What that shows me is that maybe some of the people we experience as reluctant to go inside, they're reluctant because it hasn't been made an easy turn for them. Or
we haven't helped the turn come.
Yeah, okay.
Turn is something that has to come. But I sense, when I listen, I sense and I point to where it might turn. Now, sometimes it's as simple as saying, let me say that again.
You might say to a client, let me say that again.
Yeah, and that would become a spot.
Yeah.
Or sometimes if I'm corrected a lot, when I finally get it right, then I'll say, oh, if that's right, I'll say it again.
Yeah.
There's something about recognizing interactionally between us that's the spot we're at. And that feels good. And that can move. And when it moves of its own accord from inside, that feels good. That's not threatening. But one always expects it to be, in general, from the top looking down. But when you're already there, oh, that feels good to have that. So to make something into a spot is a way of being where you already are, but becoming becoming the owner of it, becoming that you have it, that you sense it, that it's there. And, it's the thing that Anne always says in general about turning and listening to that thing that you were afraid of. But it's kind of hard to do from the top down, whereas if you have some other person who is reflecting, understanding you, it becomes an interactional reality, and then you can actually be having it. So in a minute we're going to look at all of that in chapter 4.
Yeah. But it's a very interesting implication here. The very people who we might, let me tell you about focusing. Do you think this is a good idea to do? Those people might say, "Oh no, I don't. Doesn't sound good."
Don't do that. Nobody understands it from the top down. I mean, even we who have been practicing it for years, when we think of our bad places, who wants to go there?
Right. So the talk about focusing, not probably a very facilitative thing to do. More like stay with somebody's what they want to say and listen for these spots, as you're calling them. And maybe we'll say more about how to know that they're there, and also more about what to do.
And it's a modern, current way of using what looks like, unfortunately, it looks like saying back what the person said, but that doesn't work. And certainly we do a lot more, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
We help people get fresh places and all sorts of things. But crucial for the contact, and I don't want to work without the contact. So when I lose the contact, I go right back there. Crucial for the contact and for everything else to work is this togetherness that, oh yeah, I understand, and I have said that I understood in a way that that person heard. And some people never hear that. But that's okay. I was a client who never heard that for quite a while. So that's all right, but the body hears it.
So saying back is crucial for contact, as you were saying last week, and contact is crucial. But when
you say back, you want the having inside. You want the person to have where they are, not to just be stuck in where they are.
Yeah. Wow.
So we say back in a way that the person would have, rather than confirming, repeating where they're stuck. We say back a way that, well, there's something in you that doesn't want this, or there's something in you that objects here, or there's something in you, ...
So even the way of saying back is not their exact words. It's a way of saying it so they then have it, instead of being stuck in it.
I will say, how should that be said? Because I can see that I'm failing to say it. But there's something about listening there that was never understood. It's a concrete interaction. It's a concrete process. And it makes something inside the person. And you need to know what that process is. Then you can relax. As long as you don't know, you're tense, because you're supposed to know something and you don't know it. But when it's clear that no, you can't know it, it has to come. But what you can do is point at the spot. And I will say more about spot, but let's go and look at the excerpt.
Did you give 3 points and I missed one of them? One of them was that reflecting is different.
The second point is the fat point. The second point is what's a spot.
Yeah. And the third?
The third point is when a person has their spot where they're at, rather than being stuck in it, helpless, then everything is different. Their life resumes implicitly. It's an implicit continuation of life where their life has been stuck. And implicitly, it's their whole life, even though at this moment, it's just this little interaction with you.
Now, that sounds kind of big, so can we stay a little longer at it before we go to the excerpt?
It's
when
big,
the person can have the spot, when they have it, instead of being stuck.
Right, and you can see that very clearly in this segment here, because before the shift, before the spot moves, There is this time when she has her spot. It hasn't moved yet. That it does of its own accord. To move, it does of its own accord. That you don't make and she doesn't make. But she has her spot, and that feels good to her at the very same place where she was for a lifetime so far, she's young, not possible for her to have. Instead of that, she was stuck in the hiding, in the apathy, she calls it, in the place where she would have a joint. That's where she was stuck in it. But when we can correctly point like that and reflect like that, then she gets to have her spot. And that feels good, and you have to see it, because it resumes life implicitly. And of course the philosophy is behind all this. You've got to understand that there's this implicit precision at every moment of all of life now. And so when she has her spot, instead of being helpless in it, that's a moment of change.
So we're gonna look at the excerpt, and perhaps we can look at any shift in therapy or any focusing session. But we'll look at the excerpt, looking for the early stage where the person's stuck. Then a next stage where there's a move that the client makes, assisted by the therapist, which is to have what was previously just being stuck in. What did you call it?
Stuck in.
Stuck in, yeah, right. And so, and then because she's able to have it, and your point is also that feels good to the client. That's not like, oh, I don't want to go there. That there's a thing right there that feels welcome or good.
There.
Yeah. And so it's not a big deal. It's not something we have to struggle to make happen. It should be a little turn. But then that has huge implications, because when the client can have that experience directly, letting it be there, keeping it company, those are some phrases that come to me, then life itself lives forward in the client. That possibility that's always there can come in that moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. That's good. So let's turn to Chapter 4, and just the part where the transcript is.
Yeah.
And let's read the transcript, and if you can possibly get it in front of you, please do. If not, well, we'll read it so you'll hear it, but it's much nicer to read it. And I'm only reading her part. She says, I was thinking about on my way over, I don't seem to think a hell of a lot of myself. And he says, and notice how often he goes wrong here. And he's me, so I'm not criticizing somebody else.
He's you.
I say, so you're asking, why do you have such a low estimate of yourself? But already he is doing what he always does. He's pointing. And I say laughingly, I say, he hopes that that's what she means, that she would like to know why. But she says, well, and he can tell that, no, she isn't exactly asking why. And then she says where she's coming from, which he couldn't know. I had a dream. It was a real nice relationship. And then I thought the next day, why don't I have a real one? She had some sexual dream with some man. And she says, I was thinking why I was absent in school so much. And then she realized, when it comes to the end of the line, I don't have a paper, so then I don't go to class. I hold back. I get jittery. And then I pull away from it. So he hears the jittery and the pulling away, and he says, you're saying there's something similar about not being in reality with a man and also cutting class. And she says, yeah, I have all these excuses about why I never do my best. And he's still reflecting. You come right up to the line, and then something holds back. Now, this therapist thinks that if she could pay attention to the jittery body quality, that would be the spot. So he says, and jittery is the best word for it? And she says, I pull back. So he can tell that he's being corrected. And he says, pull back is it, meaning pull back is where the spot is. She confirms that. The jittery is more a surface, she says, than the pullback. The jittery comes when the part of me says, well, you really have to do it now. So we don't know what pulls back. It's not the jittery that pulls back. No, she says, the jittery is a result. Now notice, he couldn't have figured that out. Nobody could have figured that out. She had to say, by way of correcting him, although she corrected him very shyly. She didn't really say, no, you're wrong. She said, and then she restated, I pulled back. And so he has to know that she's correcting him, right? You see that? And he feels corrected because that's what he wants. He wants to be corrected. The pullback is it, he says. And then she explains that jittery is a result, and it's really the pullback. So now he's working on the spot where it pulls back. So we don't know what pulls back. It's not the jittery. No, it's a result. So we don't really know what the pullback feels like. See, he's wishing she would wonder and go in there. So we don't really know what the pullback feels like. What it is that wants to pull back, what is that? Well, I think it's that I don't want to test myself. And I'm afraid that the bad things will be confirmed. Now, there she is saying her original story, right? She repeats what she already said and probably said in earlier interviews, so he doesn't want to hear it. He's tired of it, and he wants her to go in there. So he doesn't listen. And he says at T9, he says, can you feel the pullback if you imagine yourself going ahead? So he is proposing that focusing turn that we have. When we imagine going bravely ahead and then stop and sense, we can get a clear sense of what says no, I want to pull back. And that's what he wishes would happen. But meanwhile, he's not listening. So she says, yeah, I can feel the pullback now. The pullback is into weed. That's what it does. In other words, she would like to have a joint right now and pull back. And he says helplessly, he says, into weed. She says, yeah, marijuana, that's a perfect place to pull back. So he repeats that. Then she says, yeah, but if I don't go to the line, then I don't have to pull back. So for the third time, she's repeating what he won't hear. You follow? As long as you don't really go across the line, there is no testing of it. There is no proof, good, bad, what you're suspecting that you're afraid of. And you're suspecting you're actually afraid of finding it out. Well, thank the Lord, he's finally said back what she's trying to say, right? Can you feel yourself in her shoes relaxing? Oh, he finally heard me. She says, right.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he comes and he tries again, and he says, I was interested also in, but this time he knows it's him. He's not saying you were asking yourself. He's saying, I was interested also in just the feel quality of it. For a minute, could you feel the pullback? And she says, yeah, I could feel it. Now, the clients we're most concerned about wouldn't say, yeah, I could feel it. They would go on talking, and you would have to do it all over again.
But we'll get to that later.
Yeah, here we can see that having been heard, she is willing to go where she's at, go into where she's at. Yeah, I could feel it. Now, of course, we're hoping that she could feel the pullback in a better way than just when she wanted the marijuana. He says, let's just tap it lightly and see what it turns up. And there's really a silence now, which is a wonderful sign. And finally she says, scared. It's like the world is going to bite me or something. And that means it's not just the category scared, it's this scared. Like the world is going to bite me or something. This scared.
So, Jean, this moment when there's a short silence, would you say that's the moment of turning, where the client now has?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. She has her pull back, and as soon as she has it, then she can feel that there's a scared in it.
Yeah.
But that's only the very first little step into it.
Right.
So he says, he doesn't. And then she reports, after more silence, she reports that she is indeed doing something different inside. She's doing inside what we wish she would do inside. She's saying, it's very strange. That means she's not familiar with this. It's very strange. Feeling this feeling underneath it, meaning the scared, and trying to talk right now. He says, sensing the feeling directly and trying to say what it is. And it's scared. But she's really still describing this new to her, this process that we want. She's saying the fear is right underneath it. Now I'm content to just sit there with the withdrawn and feel the apathy until I end up with the feeling again. Then I withdraw again into the nice apathy. You see what she's doing? She's going back and forth. She's standing as much as she can stand of the scared, and then she pulls into the apathy, but she owns the apathy.
And she's aware that that's going on. This back and forth might have happened before.
And it's very strange, she says.
Yeah.
But she laughs, and the laugh is also tells you something. There's an ease that she has with it. It's sort of odd, but there's an ease. She has the apathy instead of being trapped in it. She has the apathy, and then she feels the scared underneath, and then she withdraws in the apathy when she can't stand it. But she has the apathy and she has the scared. So he reflects that. The apathy is more comfortable, and the fear is right under it. So you just push down, and there it is. And again, he's pointing to it, right, so she won't lose it.
So that phrase, there it is.
Yeah.
Very immediate, very pointing.
Right. So right up to here is the first point that I want to make. And that is that he finally listened to her really, and that enabled her to have the spot where she was at the whole time as a spot. What do I mean as a spot? Well, the one thing I mean is as a concrete, ongoing, bodily, living place, rather than as her opinion of what it is that she doesn't want to be tested. She had the concept that she's afraid to be tested. But now she doesn't have that concept. What she has is the scared itself, but as a spot. Something she doesn't know yet, but it's here. In other words, she's focusing. But let's be really clear about what kind of shift that was that just happened. She hasn't got any great realization yet. She hasn't found out anything brand new. The change is from desperately needing to pull back and wishing she had a joint. It changed to where she says that it feels nice to be there where she has, as the owner of it, she has both the apathy that she withdraws into and the scared. She has them both. And she says, I'm content to just sit there with the withdrawn and feel apathy until I end up with the feeling that's underneath. And then I withdraw into the nice apathy again. She's owning this process and laughing, which is so different. She has the spot, is what I want to point out. Whatever a spot is, you can see it here. She has the spot she's at rather than being trapped in the spot she's at. Does that make sense, Anne?
It's a big change. And yet it's subtle. If you don't know to look for it, it seems like nothing's happening yet.
Yeah, nothing is. She hasn't found out anything.
Yeah. So, but just imagine. I mean, her concept about what's wrong, that she's.
Yeah, we have comfortably together established her concept of what is wrong.
The whole session could have been spent discussing that, and I'm afraid many
absolutely.
Therapy sessions are like that.
Especially if I don't hear it.
So, and again, I want to say back your point. The spot was made possible by you really hearing what she had to say.
Right.
And when she gets that you got it, there's this strong right. You can almost see her body releasing and relaxing right there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it makes a space where then it's possible to invite her to have or turn toward or allow to be the pullback. You call it the pullback.
Exactly. Exactly. And what you're saying back, Anne, lets me say more that, I might have been inclined to say, well, you feel that it's the testing that you're afraid of, but, and then I would have added some kind of but.
Yeah.
And that doesn't matter what the but is, I would have destroyed the context.
Right.
I might have said back, but you're in this, if you try yourself out and fail, you haven't really lost anything because when you withdraw, you've already failed. Or some other rational thing, or some other diagnostic thing. It wouldn't do anything. It's only that, he finally got me. Now we're together. That enabled her to feel the pullback. But she felt the pullback up on the top of the page at C10 already, but she felt it trapped in the I want marijuana. I want to get out of here. I don't want to be here. Whereas now she says, I could feel it.
Yeah.
And then the way she feels it is this new way that she thinks is very strange. This new way where she has the pulling back, but she also has what she pulls back from.
Yeah.
Which is the scared. She has the scared and she has, I've said that before.
And this is the place where I sometimes call it self in presence, that you call it self with no content. She is no longer the content. She is the person who has that content.
Exactly. And we all know, again, when we get there, once we get there, we understand that, the person is not the content.
Yeah.
The person is the having of the content. The sensing. The person is the sensing, the thinking, the being, the acting. And what they think or say or feel is not the person. We know that. But we also strive to achieve that, and often don't, because we don't listen to ourselves in this way. And Anne is always pointing that out. If you're willing to listen to what you think is so bad in there, then you get to be yourself and have that and have the other rest of you.
Yeah.
How did I do summing you up, Anne?
That's fine, thank you. Yeah, exactly. So what happens next then in this excerpt?
Well, what we most want to talk about and what I most invite questions about is this middle part here, where she manages, or let's say he manages to actually contact where she's at, and as a result of that, now she's willing to feel it, but she felt it a moment ago but was trapped in it. Now she's willing to feel it, and she can feel it as a spot, that spot. And in that spot she has both. She has what it is that she doesn't know yet, the scared, and she also has the pullback. And she can go back and forth. She has both.
And from there we see something exciting, but we can tend to be, see if I've got this right, we can tend to be dazzled by this exciting shift that comes a little later. And, oh, my gosh, that's the important part of the session when she has a realization that this is an all-good part of her. It's so exciting. But you're saying, no, look earlier for the real magic.
Having the spot that is the crucial difference.
Yeah.
That's where it changes.
Yeah.
The fact that the spot can move, well, it can. The fact that the spot can move, well, that's right. Something can come. And if it doesn't come now, it'll come the next time we're at the spot. But it's the having a spot that lets all that good stuff come. And notice that the silence now is 3 whole minutes. It is a very long silence in the social climate that we live in, where we're not ever supposed to be silent.
Yeah. What lets a therapist have enough trust in a process that he or she will allow a 3-minute silence?
You got to know the process, then you know the difference. If your person is looking pained and not knowing what to do, then you don't leave them 3 minutes in silence.
Right.
You say, "Oh, you're this and this now. You don't know what to say next, but you wish you had something to say. Is that right?" Or whatever. And then I always would add, "Is that right?" Because I never get it right the first time anyhow. So I always say, "Is that right?"
Right.
But I wouldn't leave them sit there for 3 minutes. But when she looks like she does look, I know she's inside. That's not a silence that makes me uncomfortable. That's a happy silence.
And you've made a space where she's also comfortable with that long of a silence.
Yeah, she can stand to be there. She's all not looking at me, but looking, the way a person looks when they're inside. So I'm happy.
And you said earlier, this feels good to the person. And I think we can really tell that's happening. Yeah?
Felt good before what came, which Anne already emphasized. It felt good before what came. At C17, she says, "It's very interesting. The fear is right underneath it. Now I am content to just sit there with the withdrawn and feel apathy until I end up with the feeling. Then I withdraw into the nice apathy again." She's owning both of them.
It's
and
already
that's
feeling good. I think we can tell from the silences also that this is feeling good to her.
Yes, we can tell from the silence. We can tell from how she looks, but she actually is a rare person because she's saying.
Mm-hmm.
She's saying. She's saying it's C17.
Yeah.
So any therapist would be comfortable with her staying silent, wouldn't they?
We hope.
After she makes plain that she's having both of them, and she's going back and forth between them, and she's content to sit in the apathy and then feel the feeling underneath.
Mm-hmm.
And then withdraw when it's too much, and then come back again. And if she does that for 3 minutes, he's happy. So then we look briefly at what happened when the spot moved. Mm-hmm. In those 3 minutes. It moved. She said, "It's all good. But if it's going to get tromped on, I would rather be dead or stay pulled back." And that's implicitly a strong affirmation of herself. Mm-hmm. She's saying, the hell with you. If that's what you're going to do, I'm not going to play. I'm going to withdraw. I'm going to stay pulled back if that's what I'm going to get.
Mm-hmm.
But she's not pulled back when she says that, right?
Yeah.
She's implicitly affirming herself. She's implicitly living her life forward. Implicitly, she's had a bit of therapeutic change right here.
Mm-hmm.
She's coming forward. She's coming out and saying, I'd rather be dead than accept what I get.
Mm-hmm.
And he is working, and that's a good thing he's doing. He's working to make her see that she can be glad that this part came out and said, I'm all good and I'm not willing to put up with this. You know, he says, now can you really be glad that part came out and that it's speaking to us? Can you welcome it? But she doesn't even need that from him. It's like when you're just being nice to a person, she gives an example, and someone watching you later says, you were just trying to buy that person.
Mm-hmm.
So he says, he gets it. He says, inside you, it's good. And then they make something bad out of it. Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Notice there's always a question mark. She says, yes. And then there's another silence. And then she says, well, that's sure different.
Yeah.
So now I would welcome questions of any kind.
Yeah, questions of any kind. And I'm just would like to start perhaps with questions that point directly to this excerpt. Are you puzzled by what happened, by anything Jean said about it in the excerpt? Do you see what we're pointing to here? Is there anybody who'd like to press your number 1 key if you're not sure that you see, hear what we're talking about?
I haven't said enough of how to do it yet. We haven't gotten there yet.
We aren't talking yet about how. We're just talking about can you see these moves the client makes?
We'll talk about how in a minute.
Right. So Barbara from Switzerland.
Yes.
Go ahead, my dear.
My spontaneous question is, Jean says at one stage, if I understood correctly, that when he knows where he wants to go with the patient, that is for me a puzzle, because how can he know?
He doesn't know what will come. He only knows how. He only knows the process he wants. He wants to change from being helplessly stuck and saying her opinion over and over and over again when we know that what she thinks about it doesn't change anything, hasn't changed anything. He wants to get her off going in circles stuck, and instead of that, he wants her to feel the spot. But he doesn't know where that spot is, and he doesn't have to.
I have a very beautiful, it's not a patient of mine, but I have a very, excuse me if I say beautiful example of a lady who lived in a flat, a one-room flat. And she was, she has I have to say that in English, two poles, illness, depression, and maniac.
It's called bipolar, Barbara. Bipolar.
Thank you so much. Now, what she did in sick times, she made with thousands and thousands of sheets of papers, she made an enormous circle in her room where she lived, and I always wondered, there must be a reason for her doing that. There must be a sense for her to do that. Now, can I ask you, Jean, is there a spot you would like to aim at, or is that too abstract?
No, you're right there. You're right there. I would wish, maybe I couldn't get that, but I would wish that she would talk about that big circle. I would say, gee, you made that big circle. Something is right about that. And
yeah, it is, exactly. There's something right about it.
And of course, I don't know what it is, I would tell her. And then if I got her to tell me, that would be nice, but probably I wouldn't. I'd get some kind of ranting or something. So then I might say again, wait a minute. I want to say, that circle makes me feel like you pushed out in all directions. You pushed out in all directions. Is that what it feels like? I can't know that. I'm only imagining that. And then it would be nice if she would say, nah, that's not what I was doing. I was doing this and this. But again, I probably won't get anything for it. So then I would try again later. First I would try to say back whatever she's doing. I would say, oh, you're mad at me, or oh, whatever. Is that right?
Yep.
We would have a few minutes of trying to reflect where she's at now, because I probably won't get what I want, which is for her to tell me what the circle is, how it feels. So then I might say again, when I imagine making a circle like that, it feels like I'm taking some space for myself and pushing everything else away. But of course, that's me. What does it feel like to you to make that big circle? And then I would get something extraneous that has nothing to do with it. But I would always know that whenever I can, and then I would try to listen to what she's telling me again, and I would, and she might be telling me sheer junk, like people do in the hospital very often. And, and I would say back whatever I could of that, or else I would say back, you didn't like me to ask like that, or you don't like when I ask like that. Is that right? So I am always responding to where we're at together. Mm-hmm. And then when I can, I would say again, gee, there is this big circle, and it's doing something. It's making me feel like blah, blah, blah. But of course, I don't know. I'm just imagining that. What does it feel like, or something like that? Or I might not even say what does it, because now I know that she doesn't like it. I'm imagining this whole thing, of course. But if I did get some sense that she doesn't like me asking, then I wouldn't ask. I might do something else. I might say, just for me, I might say, something makes me want to go home and do a big circle. If that's true. I wouldn't say it if it isn't true. But right now, as I'm imagining it, it's very true. It's like I would love to do this myself. But I can always, when I was working in the hospital, there were a lot of patients that were totally silent. They were just looking at the floor in between their knees, and they wouldn't move. And I would sit next to them, and I would talk to them. And I would say, whatever. I would say, I'm just here to keep you company. And then And then I would think in between for a while, and I would feel that maybe that's some kind of insinuating something. God knows what he made out of that. So then I would come back and say, well, I feel like you're probably sad, but then I don't know that. That's just what I imagine. And probably I would say, I don't mean to push you into having to say something. So then and you wouldn't say anything ever. And then I would come back and think about it silently for a minute, and I would say, well, now you told him that you don't give a damn whether he tells you something or not. So then I would say back, it would be nice. I would like to hear from you. It's just that you don't have to say anything. And then I would think about that, and then see what was wrong with that, and I would say something else, like whatnot. And I would go on and talk to that person the whole time, like a half an hour or whatever time I spent there. And the nursing staff would look at me like, well, that's two of them crazy, he's talking to that person the whole time, and that person wouldn't say a word, and yet it would work, and after a while they would be there, and then I found the same thing with senile old people. They come out after a while, but you have to know that they're there when they're not coming out. Yeah. And that's something you have to know about Alzheimer people too. They're right in there. They're right in there whether they come out or not. But the interesting thing was that several of them, after they came out, months later, they would say to me, "Why were you always so quiet? Don't you know talking helps somebody?"
Lovely. No, I get your point, and I especially got the point how very human and low-key you stay with the people, whatever they have, that there is a possibility of them grasping something, or their body grasping something without wanting to aim at anything.
That's right. That's right. I want to be as close as possible so that we are here. As close as possible without imposition, without pushing.
Yeah, thank you so much.
But I do want to add, that's not because I'm such a nice person. It's because I know that that's the only way it will come. But
do I have to respond to this remark?
I couldn't hear you.
Do I have to respond to this remark?
No, not at all, not at all. You only have to assure me that I did answer the question.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much. Yes, you did.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Barbara. I want to kind of underline a couple of things you just said, Jean, because from the point of view of process, which we're all interested in, what does a practitioner do? There is this big circle of papers. There's something important about that. How invitational that is without asking a question. I'm not saying never ask questions. I know you do ask questions, Jean, sometimes.
I ask questions all the time.
But that wasn't a question.
You didn't like me asking the question? I see that reaction.
You said...
I haven't yet gotten what you said, Anne.
So the first thing you said to Barbara was, well, the first thing I would try to say to the client is, there's this big circle. There's something important about that. And I'm pointing out that there was no question there.
Oh, yeah, no.
And how nicely inviting that is, because the person actually has more space there. They're less pressured. When you just say, there's something important about that. There's an invitation where they can come meet you there. So I was liking that. And then I was liking how you said, well, yeah, of course that might not work. And if it doesn't, another thing you would do is kind of put yourself in their place. Like if it were me, a circle of papers, maybe that's me coming out into the room more. But that's just me, you would say.
Yeah.
So you're like modeling or guessing or putting yourself in that place at the same time knowing that that's probably not right. But it also makes something for them to check. And so the same process that we were talking about earlier, about when the client says something, we say it back so they can check. It's even true when the client does something, like make a circle of papers in their room. We can also say that back so they can check. So it's. I just wanted to underline that, and the wonderful process of you with somebody who wasn't talking at all. The point that there's somebody in there, even if they aren't coming out right now.
Yeah.
Wow, that's just really great.
Yeah, thank you.
We have somebody with their hand up. It's Brigitte. It's Brigitte in Paris. Go ahead, Brigitte.
Hello.
Hi, Jean. Hi, Anne.
Hi.
Yes, it's very nice, this talk. What it makes me, in fact, if I understand correctly, what Jean did with the circle is just reflecting where she were at. This woman with the paper and the circle. You hear me?
Yes, Brigitte.
I
but
didn't hear the crucial word.
So Brigitte is saying that what you said was, what you did with the woman with the circle was reflecting where she's at.
Well, but reflecting no longer means reflecting.
No, it means that you reflect the whole of where she is at.
Yeah,
you just reflect where she is at with the circle and the paper.
But before I can do that, I have to feel it myself.
Yes.
And I feel it like a felt sense, which means
and
I know that I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
but
of course.
Feel it.
And that was my next question, was about before you said, if I'm right, then she has the spot. And it's the same thing. It's like, first you have the spot. Do you?
Well, I make it be a spot, and I feel it as a spot. But is it a spot for her?
That we don't know. But you sense first that there is a spot there.
Oh, there is a spot there, but I don't get it. I am often wrong where I think it is. I thought it was in the jittery. It wasn't. It was in the pulling back.
Yes.
So then I made that a spot in how I responded.
Yes.
But she wouldn't go. She wouldn't have that spot because she was still hanging on this thing she wanted to say that she felt.
Yeah.
She felt it didn't get heard. So yeah, what you're saying is right, Bridget, for me.
What you say that what I'm saying is that you have your own sense inside of the spot, and the spot is some kind of door where it can't move by itself.
Right, but
once she has the spot, then it moves implicitly.
Yeah, once she has the spot, we're okay.
Yeah.
But I'm often wrong, both in what I imagine the spot to be, but I'm also often wrong in that that's a spot.
You often wrong. What's the next thing?
The next thing is I'll listen for the spot again after she corrects me.
Yes,
even
exactly.
Even by saying yes, though I can tell she's saying no.
Yes, that's correct. So how do you sense it?
Well, that's what I'm trying to point to. I sense it first because I say to myself, do I understand what she's saying? Oh, yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
But then in the oh, yeah is what I can speak back from.
Mm-hmm.
I always want to speak back from the place in her, the spot in her.
Yes.
As that. But she typically doesn't take it that way. She takes it as just in the process of what she's still trying to say and isn't finished with.
Yeah. It's just a matter of precision, being precise little bit by little bit, back and forth until we get it.
Well, I would say it's pointing at her having.
Yes, pointing at her having.
You sort of have to have the philosophy which says that there is no content by itself. There is no thought by itself. The thought is always generated by a body process, by a body constituting, and by a behavior possibilities context which is being carried forward without behavior by thinking. There is always something there, but it isn't as a felt sense there. It isn't as a spot there. But it could be as a spot if I ever get it right. But then the nice thing about it is that I'm not limited in how many tries I get. So eventually I get the spot right.
Yeah. Yes, it's very reassuring. Thank you.
Thank you, Brigitte.
Thank you, Bridget.
But Jean, this question of how do you hear what the spot is, if we look at the excerpt, what you guessed was jittery.
Right, and that wasn't a spot.
But why did you guess jittery? Of that, there must be 50 or 40 words in what the client said. Jittery is a body feeling. Would that be part of why?
Yeah, of course. She said, I'm afraid of testing myself. I'm afraid I'll find out all the bad things that I think about myself. So when I get close to where the testing is, I get jittery, and then I pull back. So I thought she was describing the body sense.
So
with the word jittery.
You listened for a time when you thought she was describing the body sense, and said that word back. Yeah.
I thought the entry would be around jittery.
Yeah.
So she explains it's not. It's in the pulling back. So I said, okay, we don't know what pulls back.
Well, you have to have a first guess, though, and your first guess was the word jittery, and not the word afraid, for example.
Absolutely.
And that's important.
Behind all this is that this therapist knows that he doesn't know, and he doesn't have to know. All we need is that the client understands that what the therapist is saying is trying to say it the way she means it.
Yeah.
See, many clients are so polite that they have to spend a long time saying, well, what you said is sort of right in this and this way and that way, but on the other hand, and they eventually get to correcting you.
Right.
So it's very pleasant that she can just directly say, no, it's not the jittery.
Good. All right. Well, we asked for questions specifically on the excerpt, and there were 2. Now let's open up and any questions about anything?
Anything,
comments?
including the excerpt, of course.
Of course. That's right.
Anything whatsoever.
Okay. So, Steve Sholey has got one.
Hi, Ann. Hi, Jean.
Hi.
Hello.
I had this little epiphany when I was reading the general introduction to week 2, and it was in the 3rd paragraph where you say, we call the spending of such time focusing. By focusing, we mean spending time with something bodily sensed but unclear.
Yes.
Isn't that a nice little one-sentence definition of focusing? Yeah.
Yeah, but then I misread it as spending time with something badly sensed. To something bodily sensed.
Oh.
That opened up a whole new thing for me.
Right.
So I have been working on focusing steps independently for many years, and this gave me a new way of entering into the process. So if I start with the thought of feeling something badly, that can break into 2 parts. They feel bad about something, or they're not feeling and sensing it well.
Yes. That's interesting.
Yeah. And then from there it leads to other steps.
Where do you go from there?
They're not sensing it bodily yet. They're sensing it badly.
Yes,
badly.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's nice. I'm learning something. Keep going.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't know if I can add anything to it right now.
Well, I'm curious, Steve, when you say they're not sensing it bodily yet, because it seems like any kind of sensing is somehow bodily. Or?
I can come in.
Not until it's aware.
Oh.
Really aware.
Instead of aware, I would say had, until the person has it rather than being stuck in it.
Yeah. Okay, I get it.
Would say that instead of saying become aware, because that confuses people. But also...
Sorry, Gene. That confusion is something that I've had a long time with this description of what focusing is.
Yeah, right. And then people think either it is a felt sense or it isn't a felt sense. Well, it isn't a felt sense until it comes as a felt sense.
Badly sensed until it comes
right.
More way.
Yeah, it comes in more or something. That turn there from being stuck in it to having it, that's what we want to be talking about.
Right. And also, it's about things that are badly sensed, because they feel bad and they're sensed badly, and that's the starting point, because otherwise we don't need to focus.
It's really important to say there's a starting point before a felt sense, even, and that's, I think, what.
Oh, no, absolutely.
No, I'm saying somebody's uncomfortable, and they're uncomfortable because the stuff that they're thinking and feeling about is uncomfortable, but they're also not able to be outside it at all, and they're not able to put their fingers on it well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You're saying, I get what you're saying very well, and it has a feeling of potentiality to go further. You're saying in sensing it badly, there are two facets. There is that it feels bad, or it's a bad thing about me, and the other thing is that I'm not sensing it as a felt sense. That would be sensing it well.
Right.
Doing the sensing job well.
Yeah, and they're feeling secondary badness because they're not being effective. Not being effective.
Yeah, amen. I'm not even doing this right, which most people include in their self-criticism. Yes.
I think especially is the part where their fingering of it is so ineffective. Their touching of it is so not touched.
Right. They go over and over and over in circles.
Yeah.
Yes. I would say from that, for me now, I would say that this distinction between sensing it badly and the bad thing itself, this notion of sensing it badly really helps us bring home that there isn't a felt sense there until it comes. All that's going to be there is the possibility of a felt sense. If you had it before, if you had a felt sense anywhere before and know what a felt sense feels like, then you can say, yeah, this is not yet a felt sense. But you don't have to know that. It can be all new to you. But you do know that you're going around in circles, and you do know also that something is there, but if another human being keeps you company without pushing anything on you, and if another human being reflects it so that it gets contacted, then all of a sudden it's more there, but in a way that feels good. It's not more there in the way that it would be if you made it more, because then it would feel bad. So what I'm getting at is that what you said enables me to be clearer about how there is no felt sense there until it comes. And the whole thing is a progression, not a either or. It's either a bodily sense, or it's this intermediate thing, or it's this further intermediate thing.
Right. Well, I came, from that into a step 2, which is just staying present and attending to whether I'm getting upset or not.
Yeah, once you can stay present, you're having it.
And it's not a felt sense at all yet. It's just simply managing the place.
Well, I don't. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not getting it very well said. It's not either it is a felt sense or it isn't a felt sense. It's on the way to a felt sense.
Yeah. Right. And there's several places before.
Yeah, and that confuses us all the time. People try to clear that distinction up so they will know.
Well, that's just a fancy word, felt sense, anyway, for
right.
Wow. It's like you notice stuff, and then you're really noticing stuff.
Right. Thank you.
Welcome.
I don't agree that a felt sense is just a fancy word for noticing something. But
no, he meant it's a fancy word for really noticing what you're noticing.
Ah, okay. So,
didn't you?
Let's get him back.
Identification.
Yeah.
And wow.
Mm-hmm. What I like, Jean, about the point that you and Steve are bringing out is that there's process going on.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
something that is there's an ing. It's an
right. There's an inging.
It's an inging.
An ing
going on. So it's not like we're so used to a world of objects where we pick up something and say,
Yes.
it is or isn't something.
Amen.
But this is not an object.
Right.
And even
you don't have to convert it into an object.
Even the word "a felt sense" sounds like an object. We
right.
maybe
Inging is great.
We want to call it felt sensing or something. Yeah, right. Exactly. Thank you, Steve. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see who else has something to say. Jeanette Chalmers, did you have your hand up? Yeah?
No, I didn't mean to.
Didn't mean to? You want to say something anyway?
No, thank you.
Not right now. All right, sorry. It's these if you press a button. So the next comment is from Dick Riddington. Go right ahead, Dick.
Hi, Jane.
Hello.
I'm really interested in any connections you can draw between what we're talking about here and the last class. And I heard you say that a little bit about this spot. I'd love it if you could come back and say a little more about that, because I kind of missed it. And one other place in particular I'd love if you can relate it back to the concept is the importance of the person wants to have it rather than be stuck in it. So there's something really, conceptual behind that you believe about who we all are. So in each of those cases, if you're willing and able, could you say anything about the kind of concept from your philosophy that applies?
I would be happy to do that.
Yeah.
I would be glad to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you want that. Any moment isn't just some kind of is object. Any moment of living is an implying further. And so often, the moment of living gets itself stuck in how we've fixated it with an emotion or a feeling. It gets stuck in how we fixated it. And so then the next moment it has to do that again. And it's a pattern that's fixated. And if we can get the implying, the theta, where it points forward to something further, if we can have it as a further implying, then it produces something new. And where that further implying is, we can't know what this new thing is yet, but something new can come. And what new comes is its own next thing. Its own next thing, which then often sounds like, well, it must have been there. And in some sense, it was implicitly there, but it wasn't there the way it comes. It's an occurring into that implying. What we can do is to try and have the implying. Am I making any sense?
You are, but when you say what we can do is to have that implying, that very last piece I'd like to hear more about. That I didn't get.
Well, it's hard to do alone, but if there's Anne saying it back, or anybody saying it back in a way that I feel like, yeah, that's more even better than how I said it. If I can say it back that I'm being kept company there, then it becomes an interactional reality, sort of like. And then I can feel the reality, and I'm feeling the spot. I'm feeling where it might move.
So was there a moment in the excerpt when you would say that the client has the implying? Was that when she was silent?
At that moment, after I finally reflect what she's trying to say the whole time.
And she says, right.
Then she says, right. And at that moment when she says, and I invite her to feel the pulling back, when she says, yes, I could feel that, she is willing to have it as something that we have together somehow already.
And that's not a fixated, stuck thing now that she's got. It's something that can move.
She would say it is, but it isn't now.
Yeah. So in that silence, and after that silence, she says it's scared like the world is going to bite me or something. During that silence, she's having it. And another way to say that, in your philosophical terms, is she has the implying at that time. Would that be right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. She has the implying.
Mm-hmm. And back to you,
yes.
Dick. Is that making sense?
Yes, it's wonderful.
There you
Thanks
go.
for making those connections.
There you go.
Thank you for asking.
Okay. Great.
Please continue.
Please continue making those connections.
Yes.
Did you have 2 points, and did you want the other one?
We did them both, yeah. One was the spot, and the other was having it.
Okay, great. Then we'll come back to you another time. We've got more people with their hands up. Pauline Dolan, go ahead.
Hello, Anne, and hello, Jean.
Hello.
Hello. I hope you can hear me right. It's a curiosity, and it's around the context. When we're talking about the spot, it is in relationship to a client and something that they are experiencing, that they're just coming in contact with. My question is around a relationship that's not therapeutic. So wondering, can we get to a space where we're communicating with each other without it being, let me say, maybe that's enough, even that question, that there's enough in that to understand what I'm asking.
But I'm not sure I understand the question. Can we get to a relationship?
Yeah, say when we're relating to each other, that it doesn't have to be from the past. That we're coming from a place just listening to each other.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. Yes, absolutely. Let me say it back.
Pauline, I'm going to mute you for a while because I think it's echoing. Go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead, Jean.
Oh. So let's see. Oh, thank you. It's not echoing
now.
So I'm going to try to say the question back. Is it possible for us to relate in this concrete contact way, even when we're not dealing with anything therapeutic or troublesome or anything like that? Is that the question? Because yes, we can. But what's that your question?
Okay, Pauline.
That was the question. It was more that it's almost like that. The idea is that the only place that we can get in contact with ourselves is when it's almost like beside the self that we want to create, to have, in that spot. Does that? I'm putting that very awkwardly.
Yes, still I have to say it back. I think you're saying is the spot where the trouble is the only place where one can connect with one's so-called self and where we can be deeply relational, or can we do that at any spot?
Yes, I mean that's very near us. It's the excitement of it. It's the excitement of the possibility that we can relate to each other without it having to be a trauma or something that needs our attention.
Yes, I like the question a lot because it lets me say yes. You can make that kind of a contact with a person by really keeping them company with what is being said, so it gets to be a spot, that whole thing, at any point where people are just reporting events of the week, and as a therapist, we're frustrated because they're not doing therapeutically relevant material, but they're talking about something in their life, and we can keep it real company. And we can let it be an interactional event when before that it only happened to this person alone, and we can allow the implicit living process to move forward, even if the content seems to be trivial.
Yeah, and I think that my question came out of that sense that it's almost that what needs the attention is more important than the whole system that's supporting it, so that there's a implied in that is the idea that the trauma or whatever needs attention, is much more important than the people that are supporting all of this, So even when you mention a trivial, it's a...
Yes, amen. Amen. And then the whole thing is, the whole living process is here anyway.
That in the spot everything is, and that they're all equal. I like that you're agreeing, or that even that I can get myself understand. That's very important. Yes. Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Pauline. Let's take a question from Jules Jarvis. Did you raise your hand,
Hi.
Jules? Yeah.
Hi, Ann. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Hi, Jean. What if you, I have a recurring felt sense. What have you had in my own body? And I've been with it and felt shifts and openings and then the next, and then I think, okay, so it's shifted, it's opened, it's being heard, and then within a couple of days it's back, and it seems very similar, like it's in about the same.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering how. So I continue to just be with it. Sometimes when I'm in a class with you, I put the phone. When you're talking, I put the phone to it because I think that it likes your voice a lot, and it responds to it because it knows there's some love. It feels that love and warmth from you. But I just wondered. I've had it for years, and it's not till I started doing focusing that it began to have some shifts, and I knew it was being heard, but it still continues to come back. So just wondering some ideas that you might have for it.
Well, it's clear to me from many, many, many things that we need interaction too. That there should be somebody that you can say it to. And it is already in interaction. It likes to hear my voice. So it's already connected to me, and I want to say hello to it. Hello. Hello. Because we're already connected, and that's very good. But you should also have somebody that you can say it to, that it can speak to, because all this, what I'm talking about, is only possible because of the interaction between us. And we can go for 30 years, or I better say first, the way you're describing this, it's already alive and moving. It's already doing something. And so it's going through some kind of process. And that may be fine. Then another thing to say is you probably need to have some interaction with some person that you can speak to, who can speak back, and that kind of interaction moves things. The world, when I was my first 40 years or something, the world kept saying everything is individual, and I kept arguing for interaction. And then all of a sudden the world flipped over, and now everybody's saying everything is interaction, like there are no individuals. And I think that's just as crazy as it was before, because individuals develop in interaction, and they're also more than interaction. But the interaction is also more than the individuals, And so now we have CBT, we have this kind of external thing that has people forcing things on themselves, and yet sometimes with interaction and also with actions. One of my clients once said, I have to take an action, then my body gets it. So there is something right and something terribly wrong about CBT. But we can't just stay with what's wrong. We have to say there is a right part of it, which is sometimes we need interaction and also action. We need actually to do something, and then it opens further. So I would ask you, is that relevant at all, what I'm saying? Have you not spoken from it to anyone? And
I have. I've done a lot of focusing with it, with others.
With others. And the other question was, does it make any sense to say, is there an action in your situation, like a phone call or an actual, it might be a very small action, but is there an act possible? Have you asked that?
I haven't, but I will.
It needs to be an action that feels right. It can be very small, but it needs to feel right. It can't just fit the concept. It has to be, oh, I could do that kind of a thing. We'll talk about that later in a later class, because
we will.
That's a big thing in itself, to make little action steps.
Yeah.
So I would ask you those things, and already you're saying that second one is a new idea. Play a little with it.
Okay.
But then I want to reconfirm that this process is already moving in you, and without pushing any of this on it, I want to say hello to it again. Oh, I really like the fact that you like to hear my voice. You under there.
It's doing flips.
Yes.
It's doing flips. So
thank you, Gina.
That's a beautiful example, Jean, of interaction. Thank you. Thank you, Jules. I noticed, by the way, that everyone who's asked questions is someone I know, and I know there's plenty of people here I don't know. So if people may be feeling shy if they haven't been in a course with us before, maybe wondering if your question might fit. And today we don't have much time, but for future weeks I really want to encourage people.
If it doesn't fit, it's even more interesting.
Exactly.
Who knows what I'll get out of it.
Exactly. But we do have one more comment right now from Ronan Culhane in Ireland. Go ahead, Ronan.
Hi, Jean.
Hello.
This is actually probably hello. This is probably too large a question to start right now. When you were talking about having a sense rather than being gripped, or not having the sense, but you were saying having the sense is an opposite in a way to being stuck or fixated. And I'm very curious about that, because I'm often stuck or fixated. And I'm wondering, what do you think being stuck or fixated is? Is it what is it? It always seems to me that there's a certain kind of sequence of inner events that happens with it. But I wonder what your thought is on that.
Well, it's a natural thing. It's a natural thing that at first, when it happens, I'm stuck in it. That sort of comes first. So with the things where I'm developing, I always say, oh yeah. And then it's a natural thing to perceive, to think, to feel about it as a fixated something. Those things are natural. So the first thing you were asking, I think, if I understood the question, is what exactly is being stuck in something?
Yeah.
Did I understand the question?
Yeah.
And I would.
That was right.
First thing I want to say is whatever that is, and we don't see what it is, it usually starts by already having happened, and it already starts by already having happened stuck. And then the mistake that I make all the time is then I go from that. And going from it already being stuck, I have a certain feeling. And if I stay with that feeling, then I stay stuck. And that's a lot of why people don't believe in doing that. Then I stay stuck, and I have to remind myself, oh, wait, let's feel the spot and not the feeling. And that's every time a new discovery, like I teach it all over the place, and I never heard of it.
Yeah, I suppose the trick is to know how to get to the spot when you are stuck yourself.
Yes, and to know that I'm stuck rather than to struggle there so hard like we do. We fixate the thing we struggle with in the way that we struggle, and yet to not struggle is nothing. So there is this spot where I remember, oh, that's right, go pause. We're going to do a whole worldwide thing now just on pausing, because just pausing with the intention of having where I am is like becoming more peaceful.
Pausing.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, pausing is a real key there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pausing with the intention, the way I phrase it to myself now with what I'm struggling with now currently, it's pausing with the intention of cooling off.
Yeah, I mean, a phrase that kind of I have to remind myself of is not to go running after it, but to let whatever it's going to be show up.
Yeah, that's very good. See, that a little mantra like that helps it. Pausing with this little mantra, pausing with this little notion that, oh yeah, I need to stop running after it. That was yours. Not to run after it, but to let it show up. I need to, let it come, let it show up.
Let it come, yeah.
Let it come to me. Don't chase it.
Nice.
But then I find that even having that mantra becomes itself a means of getting it, and I have to find another way of dropping it.
Oh yeah, that's right. Don't stay with it too long. That's right. I find that too. It wears out, and then it doesn't produce. It simply it makes me think a certain way. Yep. I would say don't be surprised. Don't be surprised that it comes that way, because all the places that you have lived beyond, that you're already free, you're not counting at the point when you say, well, how at my age am I still struggling with something? No, I am glad that I'm still learning things.
Great. I'm going to call time, say that we need to stop. Thank you, Ronan, and thank you, everyone. Let's remind people that if you want to stay another half hour or 45 minutes to have a discussion with the other people some of the other people on the line, you can do that. But first, let's unmute everybody so we can say thanks. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jean.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. There we go. Bye for now.
So, thank you.
Very good.